inspiring you to build the life of your dreams by teaching you how to create a career you love. This is the Job Lab Podcast with your host, Nick Murphy.
Hey there, my friend, and welcome to episode 5 of the Job Lab Podcast. This is the show that helps you close the gap between where you are and where you want to be in your career. My name is Nick Murphy, and I'm really grateful that you've chosen to spend some time with me today. If you're coming back to us again, thank you, and I want to welcome any new listeners. I'm so happy that you're here. Now that you are here, do me a favor and subscribe to the show. Make sure you never miss an episode. And if you love what you're hearing, consider leaving a 5-star rating and a review for us out there on iTunes. I'm having an absolute blast with the show thus far, and in large part, it's based on the feedback I'm getting from you, the listeners. One thing I've heard consistently is that you want more. What's next? What do I do now? Things like that. So first off, we're getting there, I promise. And as we progress, I'll continue to roll out solutions that can help you solve some of the most pressing career challenges. And today, I'm excited to share the opening of the Daily Dose. The Daily Dose is a daily email that hits your inbox at 6 a.m. every single day, 7 days a week. And it's designed to be your daily dose of career inspiration. Little nuggets, things to think on, things to practice, and just be aware of as you go about your day. They can help inch you closer to living the career and life of your dreams. It's simple to get started, and yeah, it's like 100% completely forever free. All you need to do is text NEVER SETTLE to 44222. All one word, NEVER SETTLE to 44222. Today's guest is Elly Johnson, and we had a blast taping this show, which I later learned Elly had to do in the hallway due to some really loud birds outside of her window. You never know what's going to happen, right? Elly's an expert in truth dilemmas, and in my conversation, we dive deep into how not being truthful can really get in our way at work and in our lives. I ask Elly how to handle the question, hey, why'd you leave your last job? And when the real answer may really scare you to disclose. She explains the signs to look for so that you know when you're being BS in an interview, and a lot more. And as always, we play rapid fire. And with that, let's get right into my conversation with Elly Johnson. Hello, my friends, and today I am joined by Elly Johnson. Elly began her fascination with influencing to elicit the truth as a rookie police officer at the age of 22. Her professional and personal experiences highlighted the gap in awareness for many people in knowing how to encourage more truth from others, accurately read behavior, and spot signs of deception early. Elly, I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Nick. It's lovely to be here.
So how in the world did you make the jump from being a rookie police officer at 22 into the founder and managing director of TruthAbility?
When I was in the police force, that's where my fascination came with interviewing and the truth and being able to elicit the truth, because I realized there was a gap in the ability of a lot of police officers to be able to uncover the truth when they needed it most, which was pretty much every day. And when I left the police force and joined the corporate world, I worked in sales and sales management and recruitment. And I saw a similar thing out there too, that so many people were conducting interviews or going for interviews. And there was a gap in awareness about how to get the truth or how to give the truth or speak the truth. And so in 2001, I started a business which the sole purpose was to help people who conducted interviews or who were involved in interviews be able to speak the truth and be able to elicit the truth, and also to spot signs of deception if it is there. So that's a short version of what happened then. So I've had this business for 18 years.
In your work, I'm fascinated by it. And just in the little bit that we've talked about offline before we hit record, you coined a phrase, truth dilemma. What, if you can, define for our listeners what a truth dilemma is and how it applies to us in our lives at work?
Yeah, well, it really sums up everything I've been working on since I started this business, or really since my fascination with uncovering the truth and detecting deception started. And I realized that people have so much of a challenge with the truth, but everybody wants it. Everybody gets upset if they don't get the truth, if they're lied to, if they're deceived. Everyone wants the truth, but everybody lies every day. Like, we're lied to and we lie every day. It's all around us. And so the word dilemma kept coming up in my head when I was hearing stories and coaching people and training people. And I thought, people just have this truth dilemma, which the definition of that is the challenge that comes with speaking, hearing, hiding, or uncovering the truth. And it can tie us in knots, and it can actually impact on our life, it can impact on our relationships, and it can impact on our health as well.
So let's stay on that for a second. In an interview situation, we're often asked about things we'd rather just not talk about or would prefer to portray, and maybe it's slightly different light than how things actually went down. How honest should we be about our previous roles, and specifically the question, tell me, why'd you leave your last company?
Yeah, that classic one. Look, I'm always going to lean towards be as truthful as possible. Now, whatever that means, there's always that fine line, how that you step over, that you exaggerate. How big was that fish? What is the truth? What is a lie? And people are really good at justifying. It wasn't really a lie. It was just a little white lie. I think the more you lie in those sorts of situations, the more you can get yourself in a tangle, and you can come unstuck very quickly. So if anyone is good at reference checking, which most people are not in my view, but if they're good at reference checking and checking the information that you've given, you're going to come unstuck quite quickly if you have told lies. And then what do you do? And they come back to you, or you don't get the job and you don't know why you didn't get the job. And it's because there's a mismatch between what you told someone in an interview or on your application, and then what they were able to find out through external sources. And now they might find that out on your Facebook page, or they might find it out through some other avenue rather than your actual referees.
So when we find ourselves in these situations at work, whether it's in an interview, whether it's, hey, what'd you do last weekend, or anything where we, our preconditioning might be, I'm not going to really be fully transparent. I'm not going to disclose the entire truth. You've obviously already recommended that we always tell the truth. How do you overcome the fear of what might happen if you do that? And what are some tips or skills to kind of practice doing that in maybe a low stakes way where I'm not going to get fired if I'm brutally honest? I'm going to test this out for a little bit.
There's no one size fits all answer to this, and it does depend on context. It depends on so many factors. So I don't think I can give a one size fits all response, but I think you need to work through what it is you're trying to achieve, how you want to be known to, what sort of relationship you're trying to build. So if it's in an existing relationship or an existing job, what sort of relationship do you want to have with the people around you? What are you trying to achieve? How do you want to be known? So perhaps you wouldn't go from one day hiding lots of truth to all of a sudden saying, I'm going to tell you how it is. You might need to sort of work into that to start to become that person that's known as a more honest and transparent person. And to do that, you'd have to start having different discussions with people and explain, I want us to have a more honest relationship, or I want us to be able to talk about the things that we might be sweeping under the carpet. I want us to have a good level of trust with each other. And that's the same in personal relationships too. You have to start having different conversations in a different way to take it to that next level.
I was just going to ask you that. Is it something that is just black and white? Either I'm a complete bullshitter or I'm brutally honest no matter what. What do you see out there in the market and in the employers that you work with? You have some statistics about how many people lie in work situations. Can you share that?
There's so many studies that have been done on how often we lie in a day. Look, some of the studies say that we lie up to 3 times in 10 minutes in general conversations. But some of the studies around actually lying in resumes, in job applications, between 30 and 40% of people are actually lying in their resumes, according to the studies, some of the reliable studies that I think. And 18% of people in these studies think it's necessary to lie on a resume. So they think, and I know I've coached people that say this to me, that, well, I have to lie on it because other people are, and if I don't, I'll miss out. So they actually start with putting falsies in their letter or their resume. Then they get to the interview situation and they've got to back that up. And now they've got to think, what did I say previously, or what did I put in my application? And then they're stuck in their truth dilemma again. And if it is an interviewer that can read behavior, they're pretty quickly going to pick up that you're not being completely truthful. So coming from a position of truth as much as you can, I think, is a better place to start. I know I coached one guy a few years ago. He was a friend of a friend, and he asked for some help with his resume. And I said I was helping this friend out, and he had his resume sort of pulled apart, and there was 6 months that he wasn't working. And he said, "Look, I've got this 6-month gap here, but I can't leave that on my resume because employers don't like that. I won't get a job if they see I wasn't working for 6 months." And I said, "What were you doing?" He said, "I just needed time out. I was a couch potato. I was watching Netflix for 6 months." And he said, "But it's okay. I've got it sorted. What I'm going to do is say that I finished that last job a whole lot later. I'm going to change the dates there. And then my brother's got an accounting business, and I'm going to say that I was working for him for a few months, and he said he'll back me up and give a reference on that as well." So he was going to put a whole lot of nonsense in his resume. I said, "Don't do it, mate." And he said, "No, you have to. And I said, sorry, I don't think I can help you. I can't coach you with that if that's your approach. So I let him do it by himself.
Yeah, that happens probably more than we'd like to admit. So what are the tips that you would give someone who faces that exact situation and they had a gap in employment? Maybe it was for a great reason. Maybe they're taking care of a loved one. Maybe they had an illness. Maybe they had to stay home with a new child for longer than the 6 weeks, right? Before we're allowed here in the States to throw them in daycare and go back to work, because that's what we do here. But how do you...
We do it here too.
Yeah. How do you suggest that people answer that question? Because I think that's one where people really get stuck. I have a gap in my employment, and should I be ashamed of that? What do I say?
No, I think honesty. I mean, we're human. Everybody has stuff happening in their life. And if you can approach an interview and job application like that, to say, and be really authentic and really transparent and say in an interview, you will notice that there is a 6-month gap on my resume. Now, I don't want to go into detail of what I was doing there, but it actually, in that time, I did some learning, or I did some growing, or I did some healing, and I've come out the other side a lot better. And whatever, you don't have to be ashamed of it. It's just reality. And being authentic and being transparent and being honest and being truthful can be really refreshing for the person on the receiving end of it, because they do get spun so much BS. Particularly recruiters and HR people, they are spun a lot of nonsense. So going into an interview and say, hey, this is a 2-way interview. I want to interview you as much as you want to interview me, because I want to make sure that I'm right for this job and this job is right for me. And to do that, I want to be really authentic and transparent. And I hope that you'll be the same. That can be a different sort of mindset to go into an interview with.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for the person who finds himself in a job and they don't have a gap, but they wish they had a gap because the job they took, the one that they thought was just great, turns out not to be, and they end up leaving quickly. What about that situation?
Well, actually, I've got a friend. She's not a close friend, but through some contacts, this lady spoke to me recently, and she said, I'm in a complete dilemma. And I said, what's the problem? She said, I took this job about a month ago and it's doing my head in. I hate it. It's nothing like I thought it was going to be. Now, a couple of things out of that. One, they lied to her about the job, and she, on reflection, realizes that she hardly asked any questions. She was so desperate for that job. She thought it was fantastic. She just sat there and told them all the great things about her, but didn't ask any questions about the job. So she realizes she got that wrong. But now she's in this job. She hates it, and she regrets going there. She regrets leaving her last job, but she doesn't know what to do. She says, that's going to look awful on my resume. And so maybe what I'll do, I'll leave and I'll just say that I was at the other job longer. And also she says, I can't tell my referees that the job didn't work out, because they gave nice feedback about me to this company when they checked, and I can't ring them and say, could you be a referee again? And so she's getting her head all screwed up because of this thing. And I slowed her down and I said, whoa, okay, put the brakes on. Okay. That happens sometimes, and that's a stepping stone to something better. It's okay. Take what you can from it, learn what you can from it, and you can learn a whole lot from that. And that is how to perform better in the interview too, to ask better questions, because she didn't ask them anything. And she could have found out quite a lot about the culture of the organization, about the actual job, about the specifics of it, if she had have asked better questions too, rather than just allow questions to come her way. And again, in that next job, be honest with it. Be transparent and say, I went for this job. It didn't turn out to be the job I wanted, and I don't want to settle for anything less than I deserve, because I know I'm a good employee, I'm a good worker, and I would be an asset to your organization. And I didn't want to stay anywhere that didn't work for me, and I didn't work for them. And that, again, that's refreshing, and that's exactly the truth. But she got herself in a big twist and made it into something it wasn't.
For those of you out there that find yourself in that situation, I have that story. I went from a really good job that I left voluntarily to a company that I thought was a good opportunity. And the moment I got there, realized, oh, damn, like, what did I just do? But I was able to parlay that into what ended up being the best job I ever had in the corporate world at Indeed. And so what Elly's saying is actually true. But I want to stay on that for a minute, Elly. What are the types of questions that we should ask in that situation to better pull that out? You mentioned your friend didn't ask many, if any. What are the questions she should have asked?
Look, there's a stack of them. And as I said, setting it up at the start of an interview to let them know that the way you view that interaction with these two people is a two-way interview. You're interviewing each other. You set that up at the start, then it makes it easier for you to ask questions along the way. Because typically, if you're not feeling that confident and you don't have the right mindset, you sit there waiting for a question to be asked, then you answer it, then another question, then you answer it. And at the end, they say, do you have any questions for us? And then you just think the interview's over and they've already closed their book. And then you go, no. Or you might ask one or two kind of, lame questions that don't really give you much. But if you set up that I call it creating a truth-telling environment at the start, where you let them know that you do have questions and you do want to make sure the fit is right for both of you, then throughout the interview, you can stop them and say, can you tell me more about the culture of the organization? Can you tell me, tell me about the opportunities for growth? Tell me how the staff get trained. Tell me whatever the situation that you want to know. There's so many questions you can ask. Tell me why the last person left the job. Tell me the specifics about the good and the bad of the job that you're recruiting me to do. Like, what are the highlights? What are the lowlights? All of those things you can ask, but some people think, I couldn't ask that. No, I couldn't ask that. But why couldn't you? It's a job that you're going to go into and potentially spend 5 or 10 or 15 years of your life. Of course you can ask that. Absolutely. And if they don't like that, if they got upset with that and said, well, I didn't like that candidate because they asked too many questions, then sorry, I wouldn't want to work there personally.
No, I think that's great. I agree with everything you said. And I think for the listeners out there that haven't taken a listen to the previous episodes, it's one of the reasons that we talk about in episode 4 with Julie. Have a plan, think, plan, then execute. Don't just go out and start doing things. So the questions that you're going to ask in these situations are primarily ones that draw out whether there's an alignment, whether there's a fit with your plan. And Elly's exactly right. You're going to spend any number of time, right? Like, we don't take jobs just to take jobs. It's not, where should I eat dinner tonight? Like, it's not that kind of decision. So go ahead and have the confidence to ask those questions and pull those things out. Elly's dropping a ton of value here. And on the other side of this break, we're going to flip it around a little bit. And I want to ask you specifically, Elly, how do you know when you're having one pulled over on you by a boss? And how do you know when you're getting the real scoop? And how do you elicit that? And of course, we're going to play some rapid fire. Stay right there.
The Job Lab is brought to you by Mid-America Careers, the Midwest Career Network. Quickly search millions of jobs with a single click. Create alerts so you're the first to know when a great new job is posted. Research exciting new career opportunities, and more. No matter where you are in your professional journey, Mid-America Careers can help. Visit midamericacareers.com to claim your free account today.
Welcome back. I am joined by Elly Johnson, founder of TruthAbility. And before we get into the other side of the coin, if you will, I know, Elly, you have another story about a friend who made something up during the process, and I want you to share that with the audience.
Yeah, it's funny. It was a few months ago, and a friend called Jo, she rang me. She said, I've applied for a particular position and I really, really want it. And I said, okay, great. And she said, can you give me some interview tips? And I said, fine. We talked through that. And then she went on to tell me, she said, it was a particular business administration qualification that was needed. I said, okay, so have you got that qualification? And she said, no. I said, oh, okay. Have you sent your application in? She said, yes. So what did you do with that? She said, I just made it up. And I said, what did you do? She said, I just looked up what the qualification was that was required. Then I looked up the colleges that actually run that course, looked through the course, and I think I can talk my way through that. And I said, you are nuts.
Dear God.
But it doesn't seem that hard. And I said, no, you can't do that. This is wrong. This is wrong on so many levels. You will come unstuck. I said, apart from that is not fair. You want them to be truthful with you, yet you're saying you have a qualification that you don't. That is not good. She goes, oh, well, too late now. And so she'd actually sort of practice what she would say by going through, looking at the course, and if they asked anything, and I don't know what, I said, what if they want the certificate? What if they want to see proof? She said, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. So,
oh my God.
So many, and there's people in high level positions that have done things like that early in their career, and they've gone up the ranks, saying that they've got a particular qualification that they don't have. And, apart from, you may never get caught, but you still have to carry that through every day. You still have to carry through the knowledge that you got that job on false pretenses, that you do not have that qualification or you do not have that experience. And people don't like people lying to them, yet we do it to others. So, I think it's really important to sit back and think about that and be more authentic, because the right job for you will match with who you are now and the qualification experience that you've got now. And if you don't have the qualification and you need it, go get it. Put the work in. Put the work in to become that person that you'd like to say you are.
No, absolutely. I think anytime that you go into a situation where you're coming in off the bat at a disadvantage, but you're trying to pretend you don't, like, the truth's going to come out, guys. Like, there's no way to fake that. You might be able to BS your way through it, but at some point you're going to get into the job and realize, I probably didn't know everything I thought I know. It wasn't reading the course description or the syllabus doesn't create the knowledge that you might need to do that. So
don't be doing that.
Right? Flipping to the other side of the coin real quick, on the job seeker side, or if I'm in an organization, how do I know? Like, just flip it around and I'm on the receiving end of the information. Now, how is it that we can know when we're being BS'd by a boss or during an interview, or I had a sales background? How do I know when a client is just pulling one over on me? What should I look for?
Yeah. Okay. So firstly, there's no one thing that indicates deception. There's no Pinocchio's nose. So when somebody lies, their nose doesn't grow, although that would be really handy if it did. There's lots of things that we can look for. One of the most important things when you're connecting with somebody and then you want to look for lies and deception is to look for a shift or a change or a deviation from someone's normal behavior. So it's important to get to know how they normally communicate when you're not asking questions or when you're not in that critical situation. Then when you see that shift or change, perhaps they're pausing in their answers, they're shifting in their chair, they're scratching their nose, or they're doing a cluster of those things at a particular time. That doesn't equal deception, but it equals a change in behavior, which could indicate stress associated with concern for that question or that situation. And that just should raise a little red flag or ring a warning bell to say, okay, something's interesting there. Something has changed. And when you hear that warning bell, that should prompt you to either ask more questions or conduct more of an investigation around that, depending on what the situation is. So there's no study in the world that has said that when somebody lies, this is what happens. There's no one behavior, but groups or clusters of behavior can be important to look for. And also that shift or change or deviation from somebody's normal or baseline behavior can be important. But, that's a big topic for another day to go through the science of truth and lies. But that's the first step I can give you there.
So oftentimes in a work environment, we don't have the luxury of, particularly in a job interview is what comes to mind, or in an initial client meeting if you're on the sales side, or if you're the buyer, right? And you're talking to a salesperson, we don't necessarily always have the luxury of understanding what, quote, normal behavior might be from every individual we encounter. So aside from like trying to be able to pick out sociopaths who can just lie like it's no big deal, what else could we look for in that initial intro? If we can't really, we don't have a baseline for what's normal and what's not.
Well, we can get a baseline sooner than we think for a start. So you can actually slow things down and engage somebody in conversation that's not critical to the sale or critical to the interview. So we can baseline someone quicker than we think we can. That's the first thing. But also to look under a number of channels. So looking at the paralinguistics, which is the way their tone, their pitch, their speed, their rate, their volume, looking for shifts or changes or pauses in that, looking for changes in facial expressions and also micro expressions, which are really fast emotional flashes on the face. So someone's saying that they really like you, but they've got a look of contempt on their face, but it only lasts for the 25th of a second. That can be important to see. Shifts in chairs, touching the face, those sorts of behaviors that indicate there's some sort of cognitive and emotional load going on related to that deception. That can be really important to look for. And again, don't jump to conclusions though. All it should do is ring that warning bell to say, that's interesting, something has changed. When somebody doesn't answer a question or they answer a question, your question with another question, that can be interesting too. So all those little warning signs to look out for, and just think, I need to ask more, or I need to be careful, or I need to tread carefully.
So particularly inside of an organization, I feel like in my experience, there's a lot of times where, whether it's leadership, depending on where you are in the organization, there are things that they're just not going to disclose to their employees. And what skills or what tactics would you advise a listener out there who wants to encourage their manager or another leader to be more truthful and just level with them?
So You're right. Look, there's always going to be things that are hidden, and some for the right reasons. So the truth doesn't always need to come out every time, 100% of the time. Certain, organizations or managers might keep the truth hidden, and it's for the right reasons. But I think it comes back to what I said before about creating that foundation for honesty. You need to really think through, what sort of relationships do I want to have? So if I'm a manager now, what sort of relationships do I want to have with my staff and my manager or my team? And you said before about creating a plan and a strategy, and it doesn't happen overnight. You need to really think, what is it I'm trying to create here? What sort of culture? And a culture of truthfulness and honesty and trust. That's what's going to get a team rocking. And you take those elements out and you've got people talking behind backs and backstabbing and so much BS that it's always going to fall apart at some point. So I think it's a strategy. I think it's a plan, and it's being able to have those conversations to say, you know what, I think we can do better. And I think that involves having some crucial conversations and some creating an environment that encourages more truth. But it's a longer strategy and you need to put some work into it.
I completely geek out on this stuff. I love the science of it. I love the psychology behind it. I think your work's absolutely fascinating. So I could talk to you forever, but in the interest of time and out of respect for our listeners and yourselves, I want to jump into rapid fire. So Elly, are you ready?
Okay.
Let's do it. What do you think about when you're alone in your car?
I think about what other programs I can create to spread the word, because I love what I do. I'm constantly thinking about work, and which is a good and a bad thing.
What's your advice for your previous boss?
It's been a long time since I've had a boss, and can I give advice to myself as my current boss? Does that count? Can I do that?
Absolutely. That'd be great. Yeah, do it.
All right. Current advice as my boss to myself is stop procrastinating and get the hard stuff done first, because that's my biggest fault. It's procrastinating.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be probably pretty close on what I'm being right now, and the journey that I'm on right now. I'm pretty much on track, is absorbing knowledge and sharing it the best way I know how.
What inspires you?
People that love to step out of their comfort zone and just jump into the deep end and swim like crazy.
What is your biggest fear?
It used to be speaking on camera, and I fixed that up a couple of years ago because I created some online training programs, and I went and did a 3-day camera course so that I no longer had that biggest fear. So I don't know what my biggest fear is anymore.
Who do you admire the most?
I admire my fiance. Am I allowed to say that? I admire my fiance.
You're going to get points for that one. I would say that all day long. If it's true, go for it.
It is true. It's very true. He is an amazing.
It's not a truth dilemma, is it?
There's no truth dilemma. No, not at all. He's an amazing man he's been through some difficult times over the few years before I met him and just after I met him, and he's come out stronger and better and more wonderful than ever. And so I admire him.
Which celebrity annoys you the most?
That's a tricky one, because I actually don't really follow many celebrities. I stay away from celebrities, so none of them really annoy me because I don't allow them to annoy me.
So last one, you get to share a drink or a meal with anyone in history, dead or alive. Who is it and why? All
right, I'm going to get points for this one, Nick, because I want to share a drink and a meal with you, and you're on the other side of the world. And we know we'll do this soon. So that is who I'd like to share a drink and a meal with.
Massive points to Elly Johnson. I'm dying to get to Australia. I haven't been to Asia. I haven't been to Australia.
Oh, you must come to Sydney. Come to Sydney, then we'll zip down to Melbourne and have a look down there as well. So
that would be absolutely amazing. We'll make that happen. So before I let you go, what is your one parting piece of advice for our audience, and how can we follow your work more closely?
Okay. Look, as you can see, I'm passionate about truth, all things truth. And I think to be able to bring more truth into your life, into your personal relationships, into your business relationships, into your job interviews, and really stop and have a think about it. We demand more truth, but do we give truth? And what do we need to do to increase that in our worlds? Because I think that is a good thing. It's difficult, but I think it's a really positive thing, even with our children, our families as well. So, stop, think, what do I need to do differently? I can help you with that. I can have conversations. I can help you through truth dilemmas. If you're stuck in a tangled web of a truth dilemma, would love to help you. You can find me at ellyjohnson.com. and get in touch. I'd love to help you with your truth dilemma or just continue this discussion.
Elly Johnson, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being so generous with your brain and with your work and for spending so much time with us here today.
You're welcome. Thank you. I enjoyed it, and good luck for everyone.
We're going to get that drink in Sydney soon, and Elly will be back on the show at some point in the future. I all but guarantee it. Thanks again. We'll talk to you.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Bye.
Take care. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Elly Johnson. Elly's created a special gift for you, my listeners. It's a tip sheet on how you can get and give more truth in your career. And you can grab that free download over at thejoblab.com/E5 download. Next week on episode 6, I'll chat with Morgan Field, a corporate rock star turned entrepreneur and life coach. In our conversation, we'll talk about the skills Morgan developed that help her climb the corporate ladder and achieve financial and career success at work. Then we'll totally shift gears and learn about how she knew when it was time to go off on her own and how she built a 6-figure business and even became a best-selling author completely from scratch in less than 2 years. So whether you're looking to climb the ladder or jump the hell off the ladder, episode 6 is going to be one that you definitely do not want to miss. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show and make sure you never miss an episode. And if you love what you're hearing, please consider giving the Job Lab a 5-star rating and leave a review for us out there on iTunes. And if you still want just a little bit more, text Never Settle to 44222 to get your free daily dose of career inspiration. I really took a lot away from today's conversation with Elly. As a best practice, it's always best to lead with the truth, especially about the things we've done. In this era of fake news, when the truth is under attack, being authentic, open, and honest will truly separate you from the masses and help you set yourself up for tremendous success. So whatever you do, whatever you aspire to do, remember, never settle. Thanks for being here, and I'll be back with you next week.
You've been listening to The Job Lab with your host, Nick Murphy. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or Google Play today.